Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today I present to you a king representing the state of Illinois. His name is Santiago Valdez. He is a seasoned residential investment and luxury broker with 20 years of experience, renowned for his exceptional results and passion for building meaningful connections. Born in Arequipa, Peru, Santiago's diverse life experiences, including leading the nationally ranked Relux Group, expanding his investment portfolio, U.S. Army service, managing and personal at Loyola University, offer him a unique perspective and execution style in real estate as a top ranked broker. Santiago consistently delivers tailored solutions that exceeds client expectations, ensuring every real estate journey is extraordinary. You can get in touch with Santiago at Santiago at Chicago773.com or his mobile number 773-858-2410. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Santiago. Santiago, how are you?
Hey,
Good morning.
good. Good morning.
How's everything in your world?
Fabulous. That was such a beautiful intro.
No, you're not.
It's like
Thanks.
my whole life in a paragraph. That's it.
Honor and pleasure to share time with you, man. Thanks for taking the time out of your day for me.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, of course, man. Santiago, what year did you get into real estate, and what called your attention to serve people in the industry?
Got licensed in 2004. I started taking the real estate license class in 2002, and I was like a couple of weeks into it, and then in Illinois, you have a requirement of number of hours.
Mhm.
And I've never been amazing at going to school, going to class, so I started missing some classes and I dropped out and then I went back to work. And then, those 2 years, I was like, I really should be doing this. Oh, you're good.
Sorry.
So in 2004, I took the classes and yeah, and I've been doing it ever since. What called me to it was, I knew that I would be just really good at it because I was working before then when I was taking the classes. I was working at Loyola University, and I was with the university police department. And I was at the time, I was a sergeant of like the campus police. So I had quite a few people that worked that I supervised. So maybe like 35 people or so that I supervised, door monitors, other police officers, just different kind of people like that. And our job is to basically serve the community, talk to the students, the professors, any staff member that had issues, and also deal with the community in general. And in that, there's a lot of research that has to happen. Like you have to write reports, you have to dig into information. I went to lots of like police training stuff, and personally at the time, I was also like I had bought a condo. The condo had made more money than I had, so it was like the condo was like yeah. So then I was really interested into real estate, and real estate at the time was what we now know that was just like appreciating and appreciating almost nonstop. So everybody was talking about either real estate or stocks, and I was into both. I was like watching all of it, and I just knew I would be really good um, at real estate. I was a little delusional. I thought I would be really good at everything. I thought if I became a doctor, I'd be great at that. If I was like CEO, I could do that. So. But I'm glad I got into real estate and got the license. That was an easy one. That was an easy course to get.
Nah, good for you. Good for you. Do you remember how you got your first client by chance?
Yes, my first client was Adnan Kurtovic, buyer, and he was working with me at Loyola.
Hmm.
And there's a process between the time that you get your license and you actually have access to the MLS. So I had my license, and I actually was signed up with a broker with a Remax office. And Adnan was, basically he was a coworker, and I knew that he wanted to buy a place. So even before I had like access to the MLS, I was like looking on like Realtor.com and just calling the agents through there. And then, like I didn't know how to like do any of this stuff, but I knew that this was my one contact that I had. So and I had him there. I was gonna see him at work, for 8 hours. I wasn't gonna let him go. So yeah, he ended up buying a cool condo that I ended up selling later on. And then my first seller was also a friend of mine. That was also a coworker at the time. His name it was Danny Rodriguez, and I. We were working at different shifts at the time, but we were friends. He was also a sergeant like I was, and he had a couple of buildings that I knew he wanted to sell. They were in the west side of Chicago, which is, a little bit of a different market. And the prices at the time there were like, I mean, like from the time that we listed them, they were like around like in the high 300s. And 2 or 3 years later, those same buildings would be selling for like 30,000, 40,000. I mean, it was like one of those areas that was like really like plummeted, when the market crashed. So anyway, I was like following Danny Rodriguez. I knew that he got out, he came into work and what time he got out of work. And I would be there, talking to him with my listing sheets, with my listing agreement, and following him around basically like a dog, just, until he signed the listing agreement. And then one day he just kind of, it was like, okay, you know what, I'll give you a shot, I'll give you a shot, Valdez, sell the building. And he gave me one, got an offer on it. It was before, all these people were doing, what do you call it? You go and you send it to like a place to like doctor the photos and all of that. So one of his tenants had like electrical cords all over the floor. So I went on Photoshop and I like cleaned up all the floors from the electrical cords. And I mean, it probably looked like, if you look at the photos, it probably looked totally butchered up. But for the time, it was like, oh, it looked kind of nice. And yeah, and then from there, I met a couple of buyers. I met another seller from his listing. And a few months later, he gave me the other building to list. And then from there, I also met a couple other people. So and from there, I was rolling along.
Not good for you, man. Good for you. What was 0809 like for you?
So 2009, 2010 were my best years in real estate up to that point. So what happened is I was, like everybody else, like, trying to get a deal here and there. Like in this area, West Humboldt Park, prices were like, 300,000. I had a listing, then I had another listing that I met from there. But then once the prices plummeted, everybody was out. And before then, I hadn't even seen a property in the neighborhoods where, I saw like a couple of places like in Edgewater where I lived at the time, a little bit in Rogers Park, but the nice areas of Chicago, quote unquote, like downtown, Lincoln Park, Lakeview, I hadn't even stepped foot in any of those places, because I had no clients I had no clients, you know what I mean? It was like all the people I had were like in what were not considered like desirable areas, So once everybody left the business, then it was like I got this. I got to go downtown. I got to like represent buyers and sellers in all these different locations, and the business really opened up for me.
Not nice. Like, do you think that was the turning point in your career, or when did your eyes really
Ab-
light up and be like, this is my
Absolutely, yeah. That was a huge turning point. I mean, I really had nothing to go back to. So it's like I had to make real estate work for me. And my mom, she's amazing, and she would tell me, go get a job at McDonald's. And I was like, I'm not gonna, it's just like I knew that if I put enough time in real estate, it would pay more than any other job that I could get really easy to supplement my income. So if I had to work 20 hours a day, I didn't, but if I had to work that long to actually make something happen, then I think I would, if I had one thing happen, it would make up for all those other hours that I was working. And so yeah, so I think that really helped.
not good for you, Santiago. Good for you. What do you think is the most misunderstood thing about you, your industry, or your work? Would you say?
Um, I would say probably something that people misunderstand. Well, I mean, just that, like well, there's so many things that are misunderstood, and I think that there's very little um, financial literacy and just like generally, like, in all of it, right? And part of that is like hiring like a service, somebody to work for you as a service, like now I'm fortunate enough to be able to have some real estate, to have, a business that I'm running, a couple of businesses with my wife, Elizabeth. And we have like a very dedicated accountant that does, so we've like interviewed this person, we've gone through several other accountants, we found, I think, one that we really like. Same thing for attorneys, same things for, like, all kinds of different people like that. And that's something that people don't know how to do in the services. It's not something that, you go to grade school, high school, college, PhD. Nobody really teaches you how to hire a professional to help you, so then, you end up calling like Zillow, you end up calling somebody. It's like the first, person that picks up the phone, okay, you're hired. It's like you're hiring somebody to clean your gutters. It's like, so I think that's really misunderstood. And then people that put a lot of time and effort and are really good at this may not necessarily get a chance to display their talent. I know I have a lot of friends that I've met through real estate that I told them, I mean, they are a lot better at real estate than I am. 100%. They're more detailed. They do more research. I mean, they're like, by now I've learned how to do it. But they could run circles around me in real estate. But what they couldn't do is they couldn't maybe connect with people as well. Maybe they couldn't, put themselves out there as much. Maybe, they couldn't, just, be a little bit fearless, which has nothing to do with selling real estate. That has to do with getting clients. It has nothing to do with actually helping somebody through the transaction and the advice and all of that stuff of, like, helping somebody buy or sell real estate. That has to do with hustling. I'm good at hustling. You know what I mean? I can get a client, but those are two different skill levels that sometimes are, merged into one, and people think it's like, oh yeah, he can get a lot of clients, so he must be good at real estate. No, he can get a lot of clients because he's really good at getting clients, because most people are not buying, 15, 20 properties in a year. So most people don't know, they're like, oh, my realtor was great. But it's like, well, how many other realtors did you ever work with? None. So how would you know? What's your point of reference? It's like, so there's a lot of ignorance that happens with that. And it's just like, generally, I think, like, maybe a little bit on purpose. Sometimes, there's like all this like lack of information that just happens in the financial industry.
No, you bring up great points. You bring up amazing points, to be honest with you. Do you think there's any other misconceptions people have when they're buying or selling in 2024?
2024, I think right now people are a little bit scared of, as far as misconceptions, that, maybe a lot of people that I talk to, maybe they feel like, prices are at the very top, that things are, the market could, tumble, and, you're going to lose all this money, and, you better hold out and see what happens. I just recently closed with a client that I met in 2007. I helped them buy a one-bedroom condo at the time. That was, I think he paid, it was in Edgewater, maybe 147,000. And I double-ended the site at the time, so I had the buyer and the seller, and he was the buyer. And he's become a friend. He's a great client. Uh, Again, 2-3 years later, that thing was probably worth 35,000, 40,000, and he kept it and he paid it off. And just last month, right now he's preparing to sell it. Just last month, he bought a 2-bed, 2-bath. And so did he lose anything? I mean, maybe theoretically. I mean, for a time he didn't have any equity. Now he's back into positive equity position. So I think that sometimes people think that If the prices go up and down, that's gonna, maybe influence, but if you have a plan to stay in the property or keep the property, what does it really matter if it goes up or down or any of that? The longer that you hold the property, the faster that you're probably going to be able to pay down the loan, and the more equity that you have an equitable asset.
No, you're totally right. Yeah. When you have a long term game plan, volatility doesn't even matter that much. If you could change one thing about the industry, what would it be and why?
um I would change, well, something that's been like a hot topic right now has been like the clear cooperation policy. I don't know if you've heard about some of that talk. So the clear cooperation policy is basically all the MLSs have put together. Actually, I know about our MLS. I don't know about every single one, but it seems like this is the way they work. There's a rule that as soon as, like, say, you hire me to sell your property,
Hmm.
I can tell somebody else on the desk next to me at Compass about your property. But the moment I go to somebody else at Berkshire Hathaway or, like another company about it, I have to have your property on what they call a private MLS, or just a regular MLS within 24 hours. Otherwise, I can get fined, and the fines can be $1,000, $5,000, whatever, right? So the reason why this happens is, it's clear cooperation, right? So we can all share the listings, and there can be no discrimination. But the underlying reason is that all this data is sold to companies like Zillow, like Redfin, like all these companies that make all this money selling leads. And then you're going to get, basically, we go to the first point of the hustler. Then you get the hustler that is helping people buy and sell real estate. And you're not maybe getting the most professional person, because it's like you just got turned into a lead. So it's like whoever's like, the highest bidder is like, oh, I want, wherever you live, I want to have the best agent in my town. Guess what? They're going to give you 3 or 4 agents, or you go on Zillow, they're going to assign somebody to you. And it's like, that's not the best agent. That's the agent that was willing to pay the most money. you know that's what that means. So, and then, it goes to the illiteracy of most people when it comes to these matters. They don't know, so then they just, they hire that person, and off we go, and they're, buying and selling with a hustler.
No, you're completely right though. Most people are oblivious. They don't really know the ins and outs of how that works.
So what I would change is that clear cooperation policy. There's a movement right now to, and there's actually a petition on change.org that you can sign, and I'll send you the link after this if you like. And you can basically make it so the MLSs will either, remove the clear cooperation policy or allow a longer time, so sellers can have the discretion of marketing on the MLS or outside the MLS. And agents can also have basically more control of the data, which, basically they have the relationship with the owner. Some of the counter arguments are that, agents are shady and they're going to try and double end every deal, and that they're going to try and, but it's like, then, that's why we have regulatory bodies with the, the states. That's why we have, like, the Association of Realtors here in Chicago, the Chicago Association of Realtors, that can take those ethic concerns and address them, instead of, like, trying to, like, put these rules that are basically trying to hold everybody. I don't think you can ever do anything to hold anybody to, like, ethics. Ethics is something that, like, if people are going to do something wrong, they're going to do something wrong ethically.
No, you're totally right. You're totally right. Is there any courageous decisions you've made recently that have made a significant impact for you?
uh I mean, I think courage is, I try to be, courageous often. Um I think courage is acting when you don't feel, like you're scared, right? But you should do something and you still do it. It doesn't mean that, you feel great about it. It doesn't mean that, you it just means that you went ahead and did it, and it was the right thing. So I actually think I do a lot of that, maybe not on a daily basis, but very, very frequently. A lot of times it's contacting somebody. Yesterday, I contacted a friend that I hadn't talked to in a little bit. Has nothing to do real estate related. It's like, just a personal friend that, quite honestly, can't buy or sell any real estate. They're like a person that doesn't have the means. It's just like a friend. So, I reached out. How are you doing? We touched base. Um, it felt uncomfortable. It's just like there's a lot of times that I need to reach out to people, and that takes courage. You know what I mean? To put yourself out there and connect.
Yeah, it truly does. It truly does. Like, some people have the call reluctance. So what you're saying is completely right. Um, what's the story behind your most memorable success or failure that really sticks out with you? What do you think?
Uh, the story of, well, so I think that every failure that I've had um, always leads to more success. Like everything. If I look back at my life, even the worst things that could have ever happened in my life have always led to something greater. Um, that's actually how I came to be in the United States. I was living in Peru.
Hmm.
I was not a great student. I used to skip school all the time. Eventually, I got kicked out of school. And once you get kicked out of school in Peru, it's very difficult to get into any, good schools, quote unquote. So my mom got an invitation at the time to by a friend to come to the United States, and I would have never had the chance to come if I had been an A+ student in Peru, if I had not gotten kicked out of school, but because my life was, basically shot in Peru, quote unquote, right? Then it was like, yeah, you know what, let's go over there. And, I had a fresh start over here. When I came here, I was like, nobody knew me. I actually got a scholarship. I was the very first Daniel Murphy Scholar, which is like a scholarship that pays for a private high school. Thank you so much. And I'll put the link in there if or if there's a link or something that I can put it for the Daniel Murphy Scholarship Foundation. If somebody wants to make a donation, they have sent lots and lots of kids like me, disadvantaged from underserved backgrounds, into private schools. Sometimes some of these private schools are very expensive, like 50,000 a year, and they look for people that have talent and that are doing pretty well, and help them, make it. And from there, once you go to one of those schools, you can get into a lot of colleges really easy. Um, so, um, so yeah, so I mean, like that's a prime example of how my life into being in a completely different newborn life that was great. And I can list dozens and dozens of examples like that throughout my life that have led to that.
That's hilarious. That's funny how the universe works sometimes, and serendipity, like being at the right place at the right time, can really change your whole trajectory. Santiago,
Absolutely.
yeah, you don't have to answer this at all, but how do you handle criticism or negative feedback about your work if it's ever occurred,
Criticism or what?
or negative feedback if
Negative
it's ever
feedback.
occurred?
Oh, yeah. You know what? Let's see. The last negative feedback I received was I was helping a seller on a property that's a little bit further out than what I normally serve, so it was like a maybe 45-minute drive out. But I had helped him buy the property a little while back, and he was a referral from somebody else that I knew. So it's like, yeah, we'll take the listing, we'll help you with it. And I knew that it was a tough sale, so I knew that I was the best person to sell that property, because it really needed some like really good marketing. So it was on Main Street. It was just, I had all kinds of stuff. So the we put the listing on the market, and it's crickets. And in the market, supposedly all the properties are flying off, right? But it was nothing. And the he was not happy, and it coincided with our sign company and I don't know if it was like from our side of things or if it was the sign company or whatever. They didn't put a sign on the property. Um, so he was very upset. I told him that the sign doesn't really like, it's not going to sell the property, right? I mean, I know more than likely the sign is not going to, get somebody to like be like, hey, you know what, let me call on that house, right? But it's part of it, it's part of the whole marketing thing. And he was very upset that there was no sign on the property. And after that, we had lined up somebody to go do an open house on the first weekend. And the person, we just like, we have a thing that sometimes people like requested. Everybody on our little team was out of town or unavailable, so we just found somebody from our company that could do the open house. And uh, the day of the open house, it's supposed to be like, I think it's like 2 to 4 or something. And like, this lady was like nowhere to be found. I called her, nothing. And it was like, I mean, what happened to this lady? Up to today, I haven't heard from her. It's like, I don't know what happened, and so the seller was very upset. He had like a roommate that was staying with him over there. So she let some people in, and I was like, no, don't let people in. You know what I mean? Just put a sign saying that, there's no open house. It's 45 minutes away from where I live, and I was actually out of town that weekend. So it's like, there's no way, right? So he was now fuming because there's no sign. You have an open house, nobody shows up for the open house, like, and there's people coming in, and again, I'm like, if somebody's really interested, they saw the open house sign, that's great. They're going to call me, I can schedule a showing for them. It's not the end of the world, right? We're going to make it work. But from his perspective, it's like, no, somebody comes to the open house, they could have bought the house, right? And now they walked away. It's like, they're not going to want the house. But so he was incredibly upset. So and so what I did is I sent them both Starbucks gift cards, like through text. um, and I apologized to him. I relisted the property, put the sign up immediately. I changed a lot of the stuff within the property because like, we can go back and look at the insights and see what, like, how long people are staying in the property. And basically we can see all kinds of different things. We did a very minor price adjustment. And we went back out, and I don't even think we relisted it. We just lowered the price and changed the words, changed the photos, focused on different things, named one room something else. It was like called like a family room. We called it something else, just like strategically replaced the property. And within a week, we were like under contract. And he was like, ecstatic, you know what I mean? And of course, it was the sign, that did it. It's like the sign, finally, but so I think that, and the negative criticism that I received, uh, what I did is like, I could have just like been like, hey, you don't know what you're talking about. But I acknowledged that his concerns were valid, which they were, because even though it's a minimal part of the marketing effort, it is part of the marketing effort. I acknowledge that we were wrong, that there's a lot of stuff that we could have done much better, and 100% better. And I rectified as much as I could. And I also, try and, make it as good as possible and give them a little bit of a gift, a gift card. I've brought chocolates to people sometimes, and, just like, if I goof up, it's like, how do I say I'm sorry, other than just like, say, hey, sorry, it's just like, I feel goofy, and, here's a little something, I apologize. Mistakes are going to happen, if you're not making mistakes, you're probably not doing anything, so along the way, you're going to make mistakes, so it's how do you rectify it? And then just recently, he put a 5-star review on for Google, like on our Google review. So, he at the end of the day, he was happy. And we at the end of the transaction, he's like, I was so thankful you were able to take care of it, and just very grateful that we were able to sell it for what it was, a really good price at the very end.
No, that was a very kind gesture of you. And I'm sure like that was another example that most people don't realize. Like, yeah, there's always open houses, but like out of 100 open houses, out of 100, I'm sure it's probably like maybe 1 or 2 that where people walk in and actually put an offer once they go in. I'm assuming.
Yeah,
Um,
well, and so if the people were to do that, like where they were about to walk in, more than likely, if they couldn't get in, they're gonna call somebody and be like, hey, you know what, let me go see this house. I mean, they're probably not just gonna be like walk out and never to be seen from or heard from ever again. It's like, I mean, they were interested, they're gonna come back. But
no,
it's difficult to um, emotionally understand that whenever it's your property, and I totally get that. It's like logically it makes sense, but emotionally it's like, no. It's like, that was our chance.
you're completely right. You're completely right. Because yeah, but human psychology is very interesting. Yeah, when someone wants something, they'll definitely call. When their
Yeah.
elasticity is that high. Who or what inspires or influences you the most in your work? Would you say?
uh in my work, uh I get inspiration like all the time, all over the place. I was inspired by you, like reaching out. Yeah, I saw some of your podcasts, very informative. So everywhere I try and keep an open mind, which helps me stay, um, you know like in a learning spirit. So whenever I'm in a learning spirit and I'm not like a know-it-all, and I learn. So then I get inspired. I learn from people.
No, yeah, yeah, good stuff, good stuff. Switching gears a little bit,
Yeah.
if you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
Dinner. You know, I've had dinner with a lot of people, and I think a lot of times there's very little that can get outside of the very little surface in the time span of dinner. Maybe you get a couple of questions answered. Maybe you get a point across. Um, so I think I would get a lot more out of like researching their life, learning, reading what they've wrote, listening to what they've said, seeing what they've done, and learning from that. I think that, other than that, I mean, yeah, I no, 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 I'm not aching to go out with and eat with anybody really.
Oh, good, Santiago. Like, you're an interesting character, I would say. What's your advice for someone starting out in the industry? Usually, what we do today plays out 3 months from now. So, like, it's not, hypothetically, if someone were to come to you and they want to like join your team or shadow you, what's your advice for them? Maybe closing a deal before the year ends, or just taking off in 2025?
What I've said, and I do say to our team members all the time, is just kind of like, this is from personal experience. I can only speak about what I know, and what I know is my first client was Adnan Kurtovic as a buyer. My first client as a seller was Danny Rodriguez. They were both co-workers that were within my grasp. They knew me personally, and they knew I was trustworthy, and they liked me. So, but they knew that professionally I was unproven, right? Now I am in a completely different scenario where I am proven professionally, and now I have to get people to like me and trust me. It's like you can go online and you can see, oh, this guy sold over 1,000 properties. It's like, yeah, I know what I'm doing in real estate. That's easy to see for anybody right now. You go and type my name. It's like, yeah, he sells a ton of real estate. But am I gonna like him, and am I gonna trust him? You know. So in the very beginning, you have to go to the people that already know you, trust you, like you, and then just kind of show them professionally what it is. So contact as many people as you can and stay as close to them as you possibly can.
No, you're right. Yeah, no, yeah, everything is in the follow up almost. Um, is there any other big lesson that sticks with you that you've learned so far in your career?
Uh, yeah, a huge lesson for me in real estate. Real estate has been like a mind expanding exercise for me. I used to when I worked at Loyola. Like I was the sergeant, so you hang out at the dispatch area, and there's a dispatcher who I was friends with. Her name is Carol Lyons. She's a client also and a friend, and we used to talk about, and I used to have like Loyola University has tons of magazines, articles, whatever. So I used to get like all these business magazines, and I remember sometimes they would have like how much the CEOs make, and at the time there's like a lot of CEOs making like $600,000 a year, and I remember telling Carol, it's like I see no reason in the world what I couldn't make $600,000 a year. I mean, that's like, it doesn't seem like, for these people have no more skills than what I do, right? I was delusional, like I told you in the beginning. So, um, but uh, the I'm sorry, like I lost my train of thought. What were we talking about?
Your biggest lesson in your
Oh,
career?
my biggest lesson. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So in real estate, I started thinking about Carolinas. It's like I love Carolinas. So the, uh, the thing that I learned is that it just continues to grow. Like at one point in time, there was like a set of income that I thought was like, wow, once you get there, like I've seen it like online, people are like, what is it like when you make $150,000 in sales? And it's like, well, I remember when I made $150,000 in sales, I was eating rice and beans. Like some days I was like completely broke. I had no money at all, and it's because in real estate, it's like ups and downs and ups and downs. So I would make 100, it's like, but I would spend it all, and then like there'll be some months when I had like no money, So, um, budgeting, like all these different things. So I've had so much exposure thanks to real estate to continue to grow and improve my life. And I see this with a lot of people that really take the business seriously. I've seen some other people that are making like 3, 4, 5 million dollars a year, and it's like, wow. I mean, that's like super cool. They're doing basically the same thing that I am. They're just taking it to a completely different level. And it's like, is that possible for me? Probably. Do I want to do that? I don't know. So that's it's a really cool. So one of the things I've learned the most is that you can continuously grow. And I could see this going even outside of real estate into tons of different areas and tons of different growths. So it's really taught me how to believe in myself, how to believe in my skills, how to improve my own skills, and grow. That's what real estate has taught me, and it's been a beautiful lesson.
No, it truly has. Truly has. You're someone who's done your 10,000 hours. You're still a sponge and a student of the game.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I applaud you for that. What do you think is the key to maintaining a work-life balance, and how do you apply it in your life?
So, when people say like they ask me like, oh, are you off right now? Are you working right now? You go to a shop, you go into like whatever, right? And I always say, I'm in real estate, so I'm always working, but then I'm always off. I'm never working at the same time. Like right now, am I working? I mean, yeah, I'm working. Am I off? Yeah, I'm off. It's like, I'm hanging out with Carol Lyons, buying a property or whatever, or some client, or a listing presentation. Am I working? Yeah, I'm working. Am I having fun? I mean, like, would I actually like pay $25 to go and sit at somebody's house, look at their $800,000 building and do a listing presentation? Would I pay $25 to do that? It's like, yeah, I would pay for that. So it's like, I'm not working. So it's like, I'm never really working. So there's like really no, it's I guess more like a lifestyle. So there's really no balance to be had, because everything that I'm doing, I'm having a lot of fun. Sometimes there's times when like things are a little bit more difficult, like for anybody, right? And clients are a little bit more challenging. Situations get rough. Um, so in those instances, I know I'm really working, and I try to not be in those situations as much. So the ways that I've been able to do that is with people, get much better at sniffing people out and sniffing situations that I'm not going to perform at my best. So for example, that listing that was really far away,
Mhm.
I took it because it's like somebody that I really know and I really wanted to help. He had bought with me before. But if somebody just called me randomly on something like that, I'd be like, you know what? That's not what I do, right? So I know what I can do, and I know what I'm really good at. And the people, like if somebody calls and they're very aggressive with me on the phone and it's like, hey, even if they have like the most beautiful property in the best location that I want, I'm probably not gonna be like, hey, yeah, let me send. Somebody called me a couple. I'm in Boston visiting my daughter right now. Somebody called me a couple of days ago and they said, hey, you know what? I have a property in Northbrook, um, and it's a Spanish speaker. Uh, and it's like, Northbrook is a nice area in Chicago. So single family home price 600 to a million two or something like that, which in our market is good. So and she was like, we want to interview agents. We wanted to talk to you. And it's like, great, I get back, Saturday. I can meet you Sunday or after. And it's like, oh no, we want to meet somebody, before. Like, can you like? And it's like, no, sorry, it's like, and then instinctually, it's like I could have followed up and been like, hey, what about meeting on Sunday? What about, but it's like if somebody's like, gonna cut me off because they can't see me in 3 or 4 days, it's probably not the client for me. So I have to learn to, let that go. If they come back on their own and they're nice and, I feel like I can work with them, great. If there's pushback, then I know that they're probably not the client for me and then I need to let it go. So that keeps me from actually working because then I'm always with people and in situations that I am having fun, engaged, and keep it positive.
No, you're very optimistic. I would say you're very optimistic. What's the biggest challenge of being in your role in today's role? Would you think being a team leader?
Being a what now?
Being a team leader, what's the most challenging aspect of being in a role?
So I think right now it's for people that are fairly new in the business, which I think there's a ton of fairly new people in the business. It's a pretty difficult time to be in real estate. You know, just looking at like the transactions that we are doing, a lot of them are like, people are asking for tons of credits. There's multiple offers everywhere. It's not an easy time to get started. And when people are part of a team, a lot of times they're in the beginning of their real estate careers. When I started in real estate, I was getting my skills going. And at the time, the internet didn't exist. When I started in real estate, Zillow didn't exist. Zillow came about in 2006. I started in 2004. So I had like the number one Remax website in Northern Illinois because they would keep track. And I would, so I would get like tons of Remax leads. I would get like tons of just leads everywhere. And my phone was like always, people have always been calling me, like people, I always ask me, is like, do you want to buy this product? And it's like, well, how are people finding you? And it's like, well, how did you find me? And it's like, it's like, that's exactly how people call me. People just call me, people just call me and it's like, hey, like this lady in Northbrook, it's like, hey, do you want to come and sell my house? It's like, okay, so, but I think that's very difficult for people that are very new right now to get that unless they're amazing at social networking, like in the internet, which I haven't really started doing, but I plan to do. This is the first step on the social network. um, but unless you're amazing at being online and doing all these things to gather that attraction online, I think it's tough, or you have like a very dedicated like network of people already that you're coming maybe from another business, another professional network. Usually, like social networks work, but usually I've seen professional networks work better. I think it's difficult. So I think that's the biggest challenge right now for people. That all of these things that tend to work, they're also going to work, but the results may not be as big. And I will say, I was in a very similar situation when the market crashed. And were you around when the market was softening, or you look very young? Probably not, right?
No, I wasn't.
No, okay. So there was all these short sales, and a lot of the short sales didn't close. So I've always kept track of all my deals. So for every short sale I put under contract, they counted for a quarter. So I would have to put four short sales under contract to count for one for me. you know so that's what I had to do for me. It's like I want to get 5 deals. Okay, well, I can get 5 regular deals, or I can get 20 short sales under contract, because I knew some of them were not going to close. So that's what I did for myself. So right now it's a very similar situation. It's like it's tough to get business, especially for newer people. So what do I have to do? If you normally would have to get one, well, maybe you need to count every three is one. So for every three things that you're doing is going to count as one. So you just have to triple the work.
No, you really reverse engineered that one with your outputs to your inputs, I would say. And are you going to be using artificial intelligence for your business, or what are your personal goals for these next 5 to 10 years?
Uh, yeah, you know what? I use ChatGPT almost every single day. We got a puppy a few months ago. She is about 6 months old, uh, Penny. And the first day they told us, we picked her up in Alabama, and the lady that had her over there, she gave her like peanut butter every night and a cow hoof, which is weird, but that's what I guess some puppies do. I guess these puppies. And so we were like driving out of Alabama, and then it's like, man, we don't have any peanut butter, and she's not gonna be able to go to sleep without the peanut butter. So it's very specific peanut butter. It can't have like all these different things. So I went to Target 10 o'clock at night, and there's like this huge things of peanut butter, like all these different kinds. As the United States, so you have to have like 50 different kinds of peanut butter. And I was like, man, now I have to search for this specific thing. So I took a photo of all the peanut butters, and I said, hey, which one is the peanut butter that meets this criteria? Blah, 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 blah. And ChatGPT told me this one, and this one. So then I was like, oh, okay. So went and picked it out, and it's like, all right. So in that sense, I've continued to use ChatGPT more and more. And just like in that example, you have to have some human infusion into it, you
Hmm.
know, because I couldn't probably have told it which ones are the best ones for it's just like, so if for real estate and for anything else I do that's ChatGPT related, I try to think of the best human input that I can put into it, ask it, and then have it come out. So I think in the future, next 5, 10 years, I think almost everything is going to be Chat GPT infused. You may be having a conversation with somebody like me, and you may not even realize that I'm actually out doing showings, and you're talking to my AI. And my AI is actually with my voice and and there's just this screen, you know. So that's just the way it's gonna be. So it's going to be much easier to create content, to create all these different things. So it's like, how do you stand out, so then it still comes to the human element, because we as humans are the only ones that can touch somebody else's heart. And the machine that doesn't understand that, or knows only from a periphery of what that is. What is it like to actually pull the strings that make our humanity. So that's where we infuse it, and we actually become better with the machine.
Right. So right now, yeah, create your avatar. I'm sure, and use that for social media. That's a great idea. Just wait for the phone calls. Um, what's your favorite book, podcast, or article that's had a significant impact on your life or work?
um so I listen to books. I listen to them like super fast, like 2 times, 2.5 times, whatever, right? um and so I get through a lot of books. And I continuously learn from all kinds of different books. Maybe one of the most impactful, maybe not because the book was impactful itself, but because of what was happening when I was listening to it, was Warren Buffett's The Snowball. I think it's called The Snowball. It's a huge book, and I was having a whole bunch of dental procedures done, which took like days and days and weeks and weeks. It was like $25,000 worth of dental work. So it was like, wow. I had like, I had let my back teeth like fall out at some point in time, and then my jaw was moving, and then they had to reconstruct all kinds of stuff. And so this pretty smile is not. it's not free. They didn't do anything on the front. It was just my back teeth. My bite was off. It was so. Um, I, the whole time I was in the dental chair, I was listening to Warren Buffett's The Snowball. So while I was getting drilled, I was just like I was just imagining like all this stuff happening to Warren Buffett, and it's basically about his life and the book that he was the investing book that he was really influenced by, and his strategy and his way of thinking and all of that. So I still the way I feel like I am impacted by something, somebody, someplace is sometimes I'm just like sitting there and I'll get like a mirage of like a location. I'll get a mirage of like a situation that I was in, and it's like and the same thing happens with that book. Once in a while, I'll just think of like a memory I had when I was reading it, like a vision I had when I was reading it, and then it'll just come to me again and be like, oh yeah, that was interesting. So that means that my brain in the background is still processing that book. It's still trying to understand Warren Buffett.
No, no, it's like no. He's one of the goats. He's one of the greatest
Yeah.
ever to do it. So have you ever been like driving or like on your phone or watching TV and just like ponder like, maybe if I wasn't a real estate, I would like to be doing this. Like, what would be another dream career you would have like have chosen or partaken in?
Uh, yeah. So, I mean, I think that sometimes I think I'm in the perfect place where I have to be at all times. So um, I don't wish to be anywhere else, because then I'm kind of wishing my life away. Right now, my life is this right now, so this is what I am. And if I at one point in time feel strongly about doing something else, then I need to quit what I'm doing and go do something else. It's like at one point in time I was a campus police officer, and I felt strongly about being a campus police officer. I was the sergeant. I was with all these people, and I loved it. Before that I was in the army. I was a tinker, and I loved it. And at the time I had like images of being something else, doing something else. um, but at that time it was the perfect thing for me. um, so right now, real estate investing, businesses, all these things are the perfect thing for me. Do I have visions of something else? I have visions of like being able to uh, impact people, situations for longer than what I live, which I feel, and I don't know how, what you think about this, but I feel that people usually live about 5 years after they are dead. And I've had a lot of time to think about this because my dad died 5 days before my first birthday. So yeah, so I never got to actually meet my father in a way that I would remember him. So I've thought about death basically my whole life, because it's like, oh yeah, this person that they keep referring to, he's dead. So I like very few people live like if most people die, their immediate family remembers for a short amount of time, and then once those family members are dead, that's it. That person is dead, forever gone, right? Some people we remember a little bit longer, um, and I think getting to 50 years after you're dead is something that very few people accomplish. It's like what's 50 years in the past? What, like 1960 something,
Yeah, 67.
1964, something like. No, actually, 1970, 1974, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, if you think of people that died in 1960, uh, well, maybe Martin Luther King, the Kennedys, you know, you Joe Blow on ABC Street in some small town, you know, probably nobody remembers who that person was that died in 1960 or 1950, right? So not that they weren't impactful, but I feel like I want to strive for that, to be impactful in a way that I will survive my own life past 50 years. So whatever it takes me to get there, and I know, selling real estate is not it. Um, I don't want. my tombstone to say he sold the most condos in Chicago. You know, that would be an awful way to be remembered. So it's you know, it's going to be something else, you know. But the secret is still to be revealed, right?
You're totally right. Now you're totally no. I now you tell me like now get it kind of makes why rich people like to donate to things like to foundations. They want to be remembered almost. Um, and what's one piece of advice you wish you had received early in your career?
Uh,
That could have changed your whole trajectory, been a catalyst.
yeah. Well, you know, I think um, I've gotten a lot of advice, you know, throughout my life, and I think, you know, it's kind of like you know, we've all heard about this when the student is ready, the teacher appears, right? So there's nothing that could have come earlier to me because I probably did have it earlier. I was just like not in the right emotional, physical, spiritual state, professional, to be able to take that advice. You know, I've gone to conferences where I see people selling the kind of real estate that I'm selling right now, and you know, I was just like I complete like in, you know, a long time ago I'd be like, you know, that just like sounds so weird, right? Now it's like basically for me looking at, you know, some teams are selling like $1 billion or some craziness, right? It's like, you know, that to me seems like unfathomable. You know, it's like, you know, completely disconnected, you know. So if they were to give me some advice, or if I hear something, I'm sure they're saying like very impactful things, but it just goes way above my head because I'm not ready, you know. So yeah, so yeah, I guess everything has been coming at the perfect time so far.
That makes total sense. No, yeah, no, the universe has been on your side, I would say. I got two more questions for you. So when I'm 80, I'll probably rewatch this just for the giggles. You got any life message you would like to leave me behind?
A live message.
Yeah.
uh I think that the live message, if I had to, you know, I think about my own life, right? And there's some perspectives that people sometimes have, that none of it exists, that this is all a creation of my own mind, that, you know, all these people, all these situations, all this is created by my own mind, right? I'm living in my own universe, and all this is me, and you are living in your own universe. Maybe you're like sitting in a cocoon somewhere, and this is all like, you know, your brain has created all of these things, and your emotions and your spirit, right, is creating all of this. So um, I think that there's some truth to that, in that there's a lot of times people can help manifest things into their lives, positively or negatively. So be very cautious of that, and very conscious of that. You know, I think I heard Mel Gibson once say, you know, be careful of what your heart desires, because more than likely you will get it. You know, and I was watching a couple of days ago, Conor McGregor or something, some fighter or something. It was an interview, and some interviewers say, hey, you know what? Uh, I interviewed you like on Thursday, and you said, you know, this is how I'm gonna punch him, and this is what's gonna happen, and this is, you know, and you know, and you did exactly that on the ring today. How did that happen? I mean, it went exactly as you said before the fight. I mean, the guy was just like, his mind was blown, right? And the fighter said, well, yeah, I mean, like, if you have the courage to envision it, to see it, and to speak it, and to live it, more times than not, is going to come true. Is going to you know, come about. You know, for a long time I've said like, why don't I have like, you know, whatever set of money I want to say, you know, why don't I have $50 million right now? I don't have $50 million because I don't think I can have $50 million. You know, the moment I think I know I can have $50 million, I will have $50 million. You know, whatever I think I can have, I'm gonna have. You just have to really be able. So I guess that's the life lesson that I've learned so far. From my humble experience in this earth so far, I would say this is your life, and you may have many others. You may have one. It is unknown, but really picture whatever you want. And it's probably not going to be money. It's going to be the things that money could bring you. So there's many maybe other ways that that it could get you there, and do it, and go to it, and you will, at the very least, live a happy life. At the very best, you will live your life, the life that that your soul was expected to live, and you will rejoice.
Nah, thank you, Santiago. Thank you. My last and final question to you is: what legacy do you hope to leave behind when it's all said and done? I know you touched on it a little bit, but in your own words, like, what legacy do you want to leave behind?
The legacy I want to leave behind is a legacy of justice. Uh, Justice is, I think, one of the most important things. The universe always seeks justice and balance. Balance is basically the same thing as justice, right? So, I, for example, for a long time had a little bit of about my last name. My last name is Valdez, Santiago Valdez. And I did a DNA test, and my DNA showed, like 23andMe or whatever. I am like 85% native Peruvian. I am a native of Peru. I have like maybe 2 or 3% Spanish, 6% Italian, and the rest African, right? So whenever I was looking at that DNA, and I look at myself and I look at almost every other Peruvian, most Peruvians look a lot like me. So that means that most Peruvians are ethnically mostly Peruvian, native Peruvian. However, the whole entire country is almost mostly dominated by Spanish last names. That is logically impossible, because it's like you can't have all these Spanish last names and first names and have almost everybody be almost all native. Our names are, Koyokusi, Condori, Quispe. Those are our names. So what happened is our names were deleted, erased, and we were given Spanish names, so we could accumulate, and then we could have fidelity to the Spanish empire at the time. So there's a lot of injustice that comes with that, right? So for a long time, I didn't like my name. Now I've come back to loving my name. um, but it's there's a lot of justice that's like one of the, like, I think there's a big injustice that has come through that. And there's a lot of different ethnic, groups, like in the United States and Europe and Africa and Asia, whatever, right? There's a lot of injustices that have happened in huge masses of groups of people like that. That I think that through some work we can work towards a bigger justice, because whenever people are put in positions that are not really, like, whenever all of us are made to really feel like we're Spanish and we're not, there's some injustices that happen, right? So writing those justices, and overall in just all of our lives, writing the justices, for people that are discriminated, for having illnesses, for being disadvantaged, for like I've heard this before, like people are that are very sometimes very successfully, financially very very well off. They it's like they were born in third base, and they think they've hit a triple. I mean, I'm sure you heard that, right? It's like, but it's like, some people are beginning from the ground up. It's like, they didn't have anything to start. So when you compare both of these people, there's a lot of injustice. So I think if I had a life message and a life goal to bring into the future, would be this message of like, how do we get to a bigger balance and a bigger justice in the world? I think that we can all be better if we are in a better state. Nobody needs to be low. We don't need to be walking on anybody. Nobody needs to be starving. Nobody needs to be, feeling like they're less than. I think we can all, if we're in a perfect justice, we can all be glorious and wonderful, and living the best lives possible.
No, you did that. Well said, Santiago. Well said. This has been an amazing talk. I've learned a lot. You're very funny, I would say. How do you like people getting in touch with you?
Just email, call, text, whatever. The numbers that you gave in the very beginning, those are good. Like you contacted me through email. I'm usually very good through email because my cell phone number is out there. I get tons and tons of calls from people trying to sell me stuff. So if you call just randomly, especially if you don't leave a voicemail, I'm probably just gonna not, because I literally get hundreds of calls. So, but if you email, I'll be able to see it, and then we can go from there. That's probably the easiest way.
Nah. Thanks for blessing with your time for this podcast.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun.
Ladies and gentlemen, you just heard from a king from Illinois. Get in contact with Santiago Valdez. He's ready to give you 5-star customer service. Santiago, thank you so much for sharing your time with me today. Can you stay on the call for 1 or 2 more minutes, please?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much.